They called her worthless trash and tried to sell her debts to loan sharks. But when the Vampire King of Chicago screamed at her in a diner, she said 6 words no one dared in 300 years. "Shout at me again and this ends." He offered her $2 million
Orders
to
up.
be his anchor, the only
Coming
human who
through.
could save his dying soul.
Here you go.
In 10 days, she went from broke waitress
going to be
to
okay.
queen. In one night, she
I'm
destroyed a 300-year conspiracy that brought an empire to its knees. This is how Rowan Sterling made them all watch as she rose and burned her betrayers to ash. The grandfather clock in the foyer struck 6. Each chime echoed through the marble hallway like a death knell. Rowan Sterling stood before the mansion in Lincoln Park, the place she could no longer call home. 24 years old, Columbia University dropout. Waitress at a 24-hour diner that smelled of stale grease and broken dreams. Her uniform still reeked of fryer oil and desperation. She clutched her canvas bag tighter knuckles, white fingernails digging crescents into her palms. The double doors opened. Alara Ashford stepped out. Chanel suit, blood-red nails, diamond earrings that cost more than Rowan made in 6 months. Her stepmother had the kind of beauty that photographers called elegant and daughters called cruel. Sharp cheekbones, ice blue eyes, a smile that never reached above her lips. "Get off my property." Alara's voice was silk over razors. Rowan's throat tightened. "Dad raised me here. This house belonged to your father." Past tense. Alara descended the steps, heels clicking like gunshots on stone. "He's been dead 3 years, darling. The house became mine the day his heart stopped. Along with everything else." She threw an envelope. It landed at Rowan's feet. "Your mother's hospital bills, $47,000. Your brother's tuition debt at MIT, $12,000. I'm done playing charity for your pathetic family." Rowan bent to pick up the envelope. Her hands shook. Inside were stacks of medical invoices, red stamps screaming overdue. "Final notice, account sent to collections." "I'll find a way to pay." "You'll do what?" Alara laughed. The sound was champagne and venom. "You're a waitress making $9 an hour. You dropped out of Columbia because you couldn't afford textbooks. You're garbage, Rowan. You've always been garbage." The words landed like fists. Rowan had heard them before. In middle school, from girls who mocked her thrift store clothes. In high school, from boys who asked her out as jokes. From her father's business partners, who looked through her like she was glass. But hearing them from Alara, the woman who married her grieving father 6 months after her mother left, who smiled at his funeral while calculating her inheritance, those words had teeth. "I'm giving you 48 hours. Alara pulled out her phone, scrolled with one manicured finger. "If you don't bring me $60,000 cash by Thursday at 6 p.m., I'm selling these debts to Tony Marchetti." The name hit Rowan like ice water. Tony Marchetti, Southside loan shark, the man whose clients paid in money or blood or disappeared into the Chicago River wearing concrete shoes. "You can't." "I can. I already called him. He's very interested." Alara stepped closer, close enough that Rowan could smell her perfume, jasmine and greed. "Your mother's in county hospital right now. Isn't she dialysis 3 times a week? So vulnerable. Your baby brother Cassian just got kicked out of his dorm, sleeping on a friend's couch, also vulnerable." Rowan's vision tunneled. Her mother, Cassian, the only 2 people she had left. "Don't touch them. Then bring me $60,000. Alara smiled. "Or watch what happens when Marchetti's men come collecting. I hear they start with fingers, then move to more essential parts." The door slammed shut. Rowan stood alone on the steps of the house where she grew up, where her father taught her to ride a bike, where she studied for SATs at the kitchen table, where she cried the night Columbia accepted her on full scholarship before her father's medical bills from lung cancer destroyed everything. She looked at the envelope in her hands. 47,000, 12,000, 60,000 total. She had $73 in her bank account. Her phone buzzed. Text from Cassian. "Sis, they locked me out of the dorm. Can you wire $500 for a motel?" $500 she didn't have. Rowan sat on the curb, put her head in her hands. Didn't grief banao. She'd learned years ago that tears changed nothing. Tears didn't pay bills. Tears didn't buy medicine. Tears didn't stop stepfathers from drinking themselves to death and stepmothers from stealing inheritances. She had 48 hours. 48 hours to find $60,000 or watch her family destroyed. The November wind cut through her cheap jacket. Chicago was preparing for winter. The city didn't care that she was drowning. Her phone buzzed again. The diner manager. "You're late for your shift." Rowan stood, wiped her face, started walking toward the L train. Because that's what you did when you had $73 in a world of debt. You went to work, you smiled at customers who didn't tip. You poured coffee for people who looked through you like you were furniture. You survived, even when survival felt like punishment. The neon sign of Rosie's 24-hour diner flickered with a rhythmic buzz that usually drove Rowan insane. But tonight, Tuesday, 2:14 a.m., she was too exhausted to care. The diner sat on the rougher edge of Chicago's 4th Ward. It smelled of stale coffee, industrial bleach, and damp wool from customers who came in from the rain. The kind of place people went to hide not to be seen. Truckers, night shift workers, insomniacs, people running from something, people like Rowan. She poured a refill for Old Man Miller at the counter. Her wrist ached. 12 hours into a double shift. Her feet screamed inside cheap sneakers that needed replacing 6 months ago. Miller grunted, nodded toward the back booth. You got a live one at table 4, girl. Fancy suit. Looks like he owns the block. Rowan wiped her hands on her apron and glanced over. The man at table 4 didn't just look like he owned the block. He looked like he owned the night. Bespoke charcoal suit that probably cost more than Rowan made in a year. Maybe 2 years. The fabric had that weight and drape that only came from Italian tailors who didn't advertise. Hair slicked back, jet black, gleaming under the fluorescent lights like crow feathers. Skin pale, not sickly pale, pale like polished marble, like something carved from stone and given breath. He hadn't touched his menu, just stared out the window at the rain tapping a heavy gold ring against the Formica table. Tap, tap, tap. The sound made Rowan's teeth itch. She approached with her order pad. Coffee? The man turned his head, slowly, like he had all the time in the world, and moving quickly was beneath him. His eyes were gray, not the soft gray of storm clouds, the hard gray of January ice. Pale enough they looked almost silver. They tracked across her face, and Rowan felt something cold slide down her spine. I ordered 10 minutes ago. His voice was smooth. Velvet dragged over gravel, but there was an edge underneath, a vibration that made the hairs on her arms stand up. Sorry. Rowan's voice came out flat. Dead. She'd learned not to show emotion with difficult customers. We're short-staffed tonight. What did you want? A steak, rare, bleeding. Of course he did. Kitchen's closed for grill items. It's fryer only after midnight. Fries or onion rings. The atmosphere at the table shifted. The air grew colder. Actually colder. Rowan's breath misted for a second before dissipating. The man's jaw tightened. Muscle twitched under that perfect pale skin. His fingers stopped tapping, curled into a fist. Do you know who I am? Rowan was so tired. Tired from the double shift. Tired from Alara's threats. Tired from $47,000 in medical bills, and a brother sleeping on a couch and a mother hooked to a dialysis machine. Tired from being invisible. Being nothing. Being garbage. I know you're a guy who wants a steak at 2 a.m. in a diner that only serves grease. The words came out before she could stop them. Fries or rings. The man stood up. Not quickly, not slowly, just rose. Like gravity worked differently for him. He was tall, 6'3" at least, looming over her by a foot. The movement was smooth. Too fast. A blur of motion that made Rowan's hindbrain scream, danger, predator, run. He slammed his hand down on the table. The sound cracked through the diner like a gunshot. The Formica surface split. A jagged fracture spiderwebbed from where his palm hit. I demand proper service. His voice wasn't just loud, it was a force. Physical. The ketchup bottles rattled. The coffee pot on the warmer shook. Every person in the diner went silent. 2 men in the corner booth, men Rowan had assumed were just truckers passing through, stood up instantly. Hands moved inside their jackets, reaching for weapons. They were his bodyguards. Old Man Miller ducked his head, suddenly very interested in his eggs. The cook in the back went quiet. The predator had revealed himself. And Rowan didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't step back. She felt something surge through her, something hot and raw and furious. She was tired of debt, tired of rude men who thought money bought them respect, tired of being afraid of poverty, of Marchetti, of Alara, of her mother dying, of Cassian, homeless, of being nothing forever. She had nothing left to lose, so she did the unthinkable. She took a half step forward into his personal space, invaded the bubble where prey didn't dare go. She grabbed the coffee pot from the warmer and slammed it down on his cracked table. Hard enough that hot liquid sloshed over the rim. Hard enough that the glass base clinked against broken Formica. She looked up, met those ice-gray eyes, and she spoke in a voice that came from somewhere deep. somewhere she didn't know existed. Low and lethal and absolutely final. Shout at me again and this ends. I don't care who you are, who your daddy is, or how much that suit costs. You treat me with respect or you get out. Now, silence. The whole diner held its breath. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. The bodyguards in the corner shifted, ready to move, ready to tear her apart. The man looked at her, really looked. His nostrils flared, inhaling, like he was scenting the air, searching for the smell of fear that should have been rolling off her in waves. It wasn't there, just fury, clean and bright and burning. He looked at the cracked table, then back at her eyes. His gaze traced her face, the dark circles under her eyes from exhaustion, the grease stains on her uniform, the way she held her ground even though she was shaking inside. A slow smile spread across his face. Terrifying, beautiful, like watching a wolf decide not to bite. He sat back down, moved with that same unnatural grace, folded himself into the booth like he was settling onto a throne. Fries, he said softly, and coffee. Black. Rowan held his gaze for another heartbeat, asserting her dominance in this moment, proving she wasn't prey. Then she nodded. Coming right up. She turned, walked to the kitchen. Her knees didn't start shaking until she was out of sight behind the swinging door. Then she gripped the metal counter and tried to breathe. What had she done? What had she done? That man wasn't normal, the way he moved, the way the air changed around him, the way his bodyguards stood ready to kill on his word. But she'd said it. She'd looked him in the eye and drawn a line, and he'd respected it. 10 minutes later, Rowan returned with a basket of fries and a mug of black coffee. The booth was empty. The man was gone. The bodyguards were gone, like they'd vanished into shadow. On the cracked table sitting under the salt shaker was money. Not a $20 bill, a stack of $100 bills bound with a paper band. Rowan's hands shook as she picked it up, counted, 50 bills, $5,000. And underneath, written on a napkin in elegant, sharp script, Dominic Thorne. You have fire, Rowan. Do not let it die before I see you again. Her name, he knew her name. She wore a name tag, but Rowan looked at the napkin, at the money, at the cracked table where a man had broken Formica with his bare hand. Old Man Miller cleared his throat. You know who that was? Rowan shook her head. Dominic Thorne, richest man in Chicago, maybe the country. Miller's voice dropped to a whisper. They say he don't age. Been around since the 1800s. They say He stopped, shook his head. Forget it. Urban legend. But girl, you got a spine of steel to talk to him like that. Most people, they see those eyes, they run. Rowan stared at the $5,000 in her hand. 5,000. Enough to cover her mother's treatment for 2 months. Enough to get Cassian a place to sleep. Enough to buy time against Marchetti. But as she touched the napkin, she felt that cold shiver again. Dominic Thorne. The name tasted like danger and possibility. She pocketed the money, finished her shift, walked home through the November cold with $5,000 in her bag and a stranger's words in her mind. Do not let it die before I see you again. Rowan didn't sleep. She sat in her studio apartment, 400 square feet, 4th floor walk-up radiator that clanked but barely worked, and stared at the napkin. Dominic Thorne. At 3 a.m. she opened her laptop, typed the name into Google. The results made her stomach drop. Dominic Thorne, CEO of Cross Enterprises. Net worth estimated at $7 billion, owner of 40% of Chicago's commercial real estate. The Cross Tower, the tallest building in the city, all black glass and steel dominating the skyline like a dark needle. Photos, charity galas, ribbon cuttings, business conferences, but every photo was indoors. Evening events, never daylight. She scrolled deeper, found conspiracy theory forums, urban legend sites, Reddit threads that bordered on insane. They said the Thorne family had existed since the 1880s, that Dominic Thorne looked exactly like his great-great-grandfather in photos from 1900, that employees who worked late at Cross Tower sometimes went missing, that the company had connections to organized crime, to trafficking, to things darker. And one word kept appearing: vampire. Rowan closed the laptop, rubbed her eyes. Vampire. Right, because those existed, except she remembered how he moved. Blur fast, how the air turned cold around him, how his skin looked like marble, how his eyes reflected light like an animal's. Her phone buzzed. Text from Cassian. Sis, I'm so sorry to ask, but they want the dorm fee by Friday or I'm officially expelled. Do you have anything? Rowan looked at the $5,000 spread on her bed. She could give Cassian the $12,000 for tuition, pay her mother's immediate bills, buy maybe 3 months of time. And then what? Alara's deadline was tomorrow at 6 p.m. Marchetti would come collecting, and $5,000 wouldn't save them. Wouldn't even make a dent in 60,000, unless... Rowan picked up the napkin again. Do not let it die before I see you again. An invitation. A challenge. A door opening to something she didn't understand. She Googled Cross Tower. Found the address. The visiting hours. No, not visiting hours. This required something different. She found the main phone number. Called. A woman answered. Voice like ice and silk. Cross Enterprises. How may I direct your call? I need to speak to Dominic Thorne. A pause. Mr. Thorne doesn't take unsolicited calls. If you'd like to, tell him Rowan Sterling called from Rosie's Diner. Tell him I'm accepting his invitation. Another pause. Longer. Please hold. 60 seconds of classical music. Then a different voice. Female, colder, sharper. This is CNO, head of Mr. Thorne's personal security. He's expecting you. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., Cross Tower, 95th floor. Come alone. Bring ID. The line went dead. Rowan sat in her apartment as dawn broke over Chicago. She'd just accepted an invitation from a man who might be a vampire, who moved like shadow and broke tables with his hands, who left $5,000 like pocket change. She should be terrified, but all she felt was a strange, reckless hope, because normal life had gotten her nowhere. Playing by the rules had left her drowning in debt and watching her family suffer. Maybe it was time to try something impossible. Wednesday, November 10th, 8 p.m. Cross Tower rose from downtown Chicago like a shard of night-given form. All black glass and steel. 97 floors of power and money. The lobby was marble and chrome, minimalist and cold. Rowan walked in wearing her only nice outfit, black slacks from Target, a gray blouse she'd worn to her father's funeral, flats that pinched her toes. She'd showered twice to get the smell of fryer grease out of her hair. She didn't belong here. Everyone in the lobby could see it. The security guards in their tailored suits, the business people with leather briefcases, the woman at the reception desk with her perfect makeup and dismissive eyes. Rowan approached the desk. I'm here to see Dominic Thorne. The receptionist looked her up and down, smiled with all teeth and no warmth. Do you have an appointment? Sienna called me. 95th floor, 8 p.m. The smile vanished. The woman's face went carefully neutral. She picked up a phone, spoke in low tones, hung up. Mr. Thorne's private elevator is to your left. You'll need this. She slid a keycard across the marble desk. It only goes to 95. Don't get off on any other floor. Rowan took the card. Her hand trembled. The elevator was separate from the main bank. Brushed steel doors. No buttons inside except a card reader. She swiped. The doors closed. The elevator shot upward. Smooth, silent, fast. So fast her stomach dropped. The digital display counted floors. 40, 60, 80, 90, 95. The doors opened. Rowan stepped out into another world. The penthouse was more museum than home. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Chicago sprawled below like a carpet of lights. Lake Michigan stretched black and endless to the east. The furniture was modern, stark, and terrifyingly expensive. Minimalist leather sofas, glass tables, abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than Rowan's college tuition. A fire burned in a marble fireplace, even though it was November, and the heating should have been enough. Dominic Thorne stood beside it. He wore a black silk shirt unbuttoned at the collar, dark trousers, no tie. His hair was still slicked back, but looser now, more casual. He held a glass of dark red liquid that caught the firelight. Rowan prayed it was wine. You came. He turned to face her. Those ice-gray eyes tracked across her face. Good. Sienna is efficient. Who turns? My head of security. A woman stepped from the shadows. Platinum blonde hair cut in a sharp bob. Tactical bodysuit under a long black coat. Tall, lean, muscles like coiled wire. She had the eyes of someone who'd killed people and slept fine afterward. Sienna. The woman nodded once. Pleased to meet you, Rowan Sterling. Rowan's mouth went dry. Why did you give me $5,000? Dominic smiled, set his glass down on the mantel. Because you did something no one has done in 300 years. I don't. You look at me in the eye. You shouted at me. You weren't afraid. I was terrified. Then you're an excellent liar. He walked toward her, stopped 5 feet away. close enough she could see the inhuman stillness of his chest. He didn't breathe like normal people, didn't shift his weight, just stood with that same eerie grace. Or perhaps you were simply too angry to care. Rowan lifted her chin. Why am I here? Sit, please. We have much to discuss. She sat on the leather sofa. It was butter soft and probably cost more than a car. Dominic sat across from her. Sienna remained standing positioned by the window, watching. What do you know about me, Rowan? You're rich. You own half of Chicago. People think you're... She stopped. Say it. A vampire. The word hung in the air. Dominic smiled, and this time his lips pulled back enough to show his teeth. They were normal, mostly normal, except the canines were slightly longer, slightly sharper, like they could extend if needed. Not just people. You think it too. I can see it in your eyes. He leaned forward. Let me save us both time, yes. I am a vampire. I am 327 years old. I was born in London in 1699, turned in 1723 by a woman whose name I've long forgotten. I own Cross Enterprises. I control 42% of Chicago's real estate and 70% of its criminal underground. I have 23 vampires in my direct bloodline and alliances with 6 other vampire kings across the United States. Rowan's heart hammered. Her hands gripped the sofa cushions. He was insane. Or she was. Or the world had gone mad. But looking at him, at those eyes, at that stillness, at the way the firelight didn't warm his skin, she knew. She knew he was telling the truth. Why am I here? Her voice came out hoarse. Because I need you. For what? Dominic stood, walked to the window, looked out at Chicago like a king surveying his kingdom. Vampires are not immortal, Rowan. We age differently, yes. We heal quickly. We are stronger, faster. But we are not unchanging. He touched the glass with one pale hand. Over centuries, we lose something. Our humanity erodes. The memories of what it meant to be human fade. The emotions dull. We become cold, distant, and eventually, if we live long enough without connection to humanity, we turn into ferals. Mindless beasts driven only by hunger. What does this have to do with me? There is one way to prevent it, one anchor to keep us human. He turned to face her. We bond with a human. Someone whose emotions are strong enough to remind us what it means to feel. To rage, to love, to fear. We call them anchors. Rowan's breath caught. The last anchor I had was named Sarah. She died in 1974. Tuberculosis. Since then I have been... He paused, searching for words. Fading. I feel less each year. Care less. I am becoming the thing I fear most. Until I yelled at you. Yes, he smiled, genuine, almost vulnerable. When you shouted at me, when you looked at me with pure fury and no fear, I felt something I haven't felt in a century. Surprise. Respect. Anger. He laughed. Real human anger. Not the cold calculation I've known. You made me feel. Rowan stood. Her legs shook, but she forced them steady. What do you want from me? I want you to be my anchor. Live here. Accompany me to the Solstice Gala in 10 days. Help me navigate human politics I've long ignored. Remind me what it means to be more than a predator. In exchange for, what, $2 million at the end of 1 year. I will clear your mother's medical debts of all $47,000. I will pay your brother's tuition at UFMYT, $50,000 per year for however long he needs. I will ensure that Tony Marchetti and Alara Ashford never trouble you or your family again. The room spun. $2 million. Her mother saved. Cassian's future secured. Alara destroyed. Why me? Because you have fire. Because you're not blinded by what I am. Because when I threatened you, you threatened me back. He stepped closer. I've met thousands of humans, Rowan. Most grovel. Some try to use me. A few run. But you, his eyes softened. You stood your ground and demanded respect. That is rare. That is precious. That is exactly what I need. Rowan looked at Sienna. The vampire, yes, probably also a vampire, nodded once. Mr. Thorne is sincere. I've served him for 90 years. He's many things, but he doesn't lie about contracts. Rowan thought about her mother in that hospital bed. Pale, tired. Asking Rowan how she was when she could barely breathe. About Cassian, brilliant and kind, sleeping on friends' couches because he couldn't afford a dorm. About Alara's cruel smile and Marchetti's threats. About a life of poverty and fear and being invisible. She looked at Dominic Thorne, ancient vampire, predator, king of a world she didn't understand. And she made her choice. I want it in writing, a contract, legally binding. Dominic's smile widened. Of course. And one more thing. Rowan straightened her spine. I'm not wearing any dresses I can't run in. And if you ever shout at me again, the deal is off. Dominic Thorne threw his head back and laughed. It was a rich, genuine sound, warm and surprised and utterly human. It filled the penthouse and echoed off the glass. Deal, he said, extending his hand. Rowan shook it. His skin was cold, marble cold, but his grip was gentle. And just like that, Rowan Sterling broke waitress Columbia dropout Invisible Girl, became the anchor to the Vampire King of Chicago. Her life would never be the same. The contract was 17 pages long. Rowan read every word. She sat at Dominic's glass dining table, a slab of clear crystal that probably cost more than her childhood home, while dawn broke over Chicago. The city turned from black to gray to gold outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Dominic sat across from her, utterly still watching, with those pale gray eyes. He didn't fidget, didn't check his phone, didn't breathe like normal people, just waited with the patience of something that had lived 3 centuries. Section 12, Clause 4, Rowan said, pen hovering over the page. It says I agree to attend all social functions you deem necessary. Define necessary. A smile tugged at his lips. Events where my absence would be noted by the Vampire Council. Galas, territory negotiations, blood ceremonies. Blood ceremonies. Rituals where vampire leaders renew territorial claims. Very boring. Lots of Latin. You'd stand beside me and look appropriately regal. Regal, Rowan almost laughed. I'm a waitress. You were a waitress. Now you're my anchor. The distinction matters. She kept reading. Section 15 covered termination clauses. Section 18 detailed confidentiality. She could never speak about the vampire world to outsiders. Section 21 outlined protection protocols. At the bottom of page 17, she signed her name, Rowan Marie Sterling. Dominic signed below. His signature was elegant, old-fashioned, the kind taught in private schools 200 years ago. Welcome, he said, to a world you cannot leave. Day 3, Thursday morning. Rowan moved into Cross Tower with 2 suitcases and a backpack. Everything she owned fit into luggage that had seen better days. Clothes from Target and Goodwill, her laptop from freshman year, a photo of her father holding her at graduation from Columbia, the last good day before everything fell apart. Sienna met her at the elevator. Your room is ready? East wing, you'll have privacy. The East wing was larger than Rowan's entire apartment. King-size bed with sheets that felt like water. A bathroom with a rain shower and marble counters. A walk-in closet currently empty, except for a note. Stylist arrived tomorrow. D. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook Michigan Avenue. Rowan stood at the glass and watched the city move below. People rushing to work. Taxis honking. Normal life continuing while she stood 95 floors above it in a vampire's penthouse. Her phone buzzed. Text from Cassian. SysMIT just called. Someone paid my entire tuition for the year. Was that you? Rowan smiled. Typed back, early Christmas present. Focus on your studies. I love you so much. You're the best sister ever. She looked at the message until it blurred. Best sister. If he only knew what she'd just sold herself into. A knock at her door. Miss Sterling, may I enter? The voice was warm, grandfatherly, nothing like Sienna's cold precision or Dominic's smooth danger. Come in? The man who entered was in his 70s. Silver hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Cardigan sweater over a button-down shirt. He looked like someone who should be teaching literature at a small college not serving a vampire king. Gabriel Crane, he extended a hand. His grip was warm, human. Financial advisor to Mr. Thorne. I've been with the family for, well, a very long time. How long? 300 years, give or take. He smiled at her expression. I'm human, but I come from a bloodline that has served the Thorne family for generations. My great-great-grandfather was Dominic's first human advisor. The position passes down. You chose to serve him. I chose to survive in a world where vampires hold power. And Dominic, for all his faults, is better than most. He pays well, protects his people, doesn't kill for sport. Gabriel sat in the chair by her window. You're the first anchor he's taken in 50 years. That's significant. Why, twin? Because it means he still wants to stay human. Some vampires embrace the fade, become monsters willingly. The fact that Dominic chose you, Gabriel studied her face, means he's still fighting. Rowan sat on the bed. What do I need to know? Everything, and we have 10 days before the Solstice Gala. That's when the 7 regional vampire kings meet. You'll be presented to the council. They'll judge whether you're suitable. And if I'm not, Gabriel's kind eyes went hard, then Dominic loses credibility. His enemies will see weakness. And weak kings don't survive long. No pressure then. Day 4, Friday afternoon. Sienna took her to the training room. It was on the 94th floor, a private gym that would make Olympic athletes weep. Mats, weights, a boxing ring, weapons mounted on the wall, swords, knives, things Rowan couldn't name. Why do I need to train? Rowan asked. I thought I was just supposed to be present. Sienna pulled her platinum hair into a tight ponytail. You're human in a world of predators. The Solstice Gala will have 200 vampires in one room. Many of them would love to see Dominic fail. You represent his anchor bond proof he's still strong enough to maintain humanity. Some will try to test that, intimidate you, threaten you. Can't Dominic just protect me? He can, he will, but you need to protect yourself first. Sienna tossed Rowan a pair of training gloves. I'm going to teach you 3 things: how to run, how to create 3 seconds, how to survive. 3 seconds. That's all I need to reach you. 3 seconds between when someone attacks and when I put them down. But you have to buy those 3 seconds yourself. For the next 2 hours, Sienna taught Rowan how to move. Not fight, that would take years, but how to duck, dodge, create distance, how to throw an elbow into a throat, how to rake fingers across eyes, how to scream loud enough to shatter focus. Dirty fighting, survival fighting. By the end, Rowan's muscles screamed. Sweat soaked through her shirt. Her knuckles were raw. Better, Sienna said. She wasn't even breathing hard. Again tomorrow. Day 5, Saturday evening. Rowan met Iris. She was in at the penthouse library, a room lined floor to ceiling with books, some so old they were bound in leather and written in languages Rowan couldn't read. She was curled in an armchair with a novel when she heard it, crying, not loud, muffled, coming from down the hall. Rowan followed the sound to a bedroom. The door was cracked open. Inside, a little girl sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, rocking back and forth. 7 years old, dark hair like Dominic's, pale skin, but her eyes were different, one gray like her father's, one brown like she'd inherited from her human mother. She was sobbing, gasping for air. Panic attack. Rowan knocked softly. Hey, are you okay? The girl looked up. Her eyes were wild, terrified. Can I come in? A tiny nod. Rowan entered slowly. Sat on the floor a few feet away, not too close, giving space. My name's Rowan. What's yours? Iris. The girl's voice was small, broken. That's a beautiful name. Iris like the flower. A nod. I love irises. They're so brave. They bloom in spring when everything's still cold. Rowan kept her voice soft, gentle. Are you scared right now? I can't stop. Iris's breathing hitched. Her small hands clawed at her chest. Rowan recognized it. She'd had panic attacks after her father died. The feeling of drowning on dry land. Iris, can I tell you a secret? The girl looked at her. I'm scared too, all the time. This place is huge and I don't know anyone and I feel like I'm going to mess everything up. Really? Really? But you know what helps me? Rowan shifted closer. Can I show you? Iris nodded. Hold out your hands. Iris extended shaking hands. Rowan took them gently. The girl's skin was cool. Not quite human warm, but not vampire cold either. Somewhere between. Close your eyes. Feel my hands. I'm going to count, and you're going to breathe with me. 4 counts in. Hold for 4. 4 counts out. Can you try? They breathed together. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4 out. 2, 3, 4. Slowly, so slowly, Iris's breathing steadied. Good, you're doing so good. Rowan squeezed her hands. Now smell something. What do you smell? I don't try. Close your eyes and smell. Iris inhaled, her little nose scrunched. Soap and flowers. Lavender. I use lavender soap. My mom used to grow it in our garden. Rowan smiled. It's calming, right? Yeah. Iris opened her eyes. They were clearer now, less wild. You smell safe. The words hit Rowan in the chest. Thank you, sweetie. The door opened. Dominic stood in the doorway. His face was carefully neutral, but his eyes showed something Rowan hadn't seen before. Vulnerability. Iris, he said softly, are you all right? Rowan, help me. Iris's voice was small but steady. She smells like lavender. Dominic looked at Rowan, looked at his daughter holding her hands. 50 years, he said quietly. 50 years I've tried to comfort her during these episodes. Nothing worked. She wouldn't let me near her. Rowan stood. She just needed someone who understood. You have panic attacks. It wasn't a question. Had, after my dad died. I know what it feels like. Dominic knelt beside his daughter, slowly, giving her time to pull away if needed. Iris, may I? Iris looked at Rowan. Rowan nodded encouragingly. The little girl leaned into her father's arms. Dominic closed his eyes, wrapped his daughter in an embrace so gentle it looked like he was holding glass. When he looked up at Rowan, his eyes were wet. Vampires could cry. She hadn't known that. Thank you, he whispered. Day 7, Monday morning. Gabriel found Rowan in the library. I've been doing research, he said, sitting across from her with a thick folder. Background check. Standard procedure for anyone in Mr. Thorne's inner circle. Rowan's stomach clenched. And you're fascinating. Gabriel opened the folder. Rowan Marie Sterling, 24 years old, graduated top of your class from Lincoln High School. Full scholarship to Columbia University. Majored in economics. Dropped out sophomore year after your father's death. His medical bills. I know. Lung cancer. 200,000 in debt. You dropped out to work 3 jobs to keep your family afloat. Gabriel flipped a page. But here's what's interesting. During your time at Columbia, you wrote papers for other students. Charged $50 per page. Made enough to cover your rent and meal plan. Rowan's face burned. That was clever and illegal, but clever. Gabriel smiled. I pulled some of those papers. Rowan, they're exceptional. Your analysis of the 2008 financial crisis was better than what I've seen from Harvard MBAs. You didn't just write papers. You understood the material better than the students paying you. What's your point? My point is, you have an IQ of 156. You taught yourself to hack university databases to reduce your mother's medical bills unsuccessfully, but the attempt shows skill. You're not just some waitress Dominic picked up on a whim. You're brilliant, and you've been burying that brilliance under poverty and survival. Rowan stared at him. How do you know about the hacking? I'm good at my job, and I wanted to know who was going to be standing beside my king. Gabriel leaned forward. There's one more thing. I had your blood tested. You what? Standard procedure. We need to know if anchors are compatible. He pulled out a lab report. Rowan, you have a genetic marker that appears in roughly 1 in 10 million humans. It makes you extraordinarily compatible with vampire physiology. Your blood, your pheromones, your entire biochemistry is designed to bond with vampires. That's impossible. Rare. Not impossible. It means you're not just any anchor. You're potentially the strongest anchor Dominic could find in this century. Gabriel closed the folder. The council will test you at the gala. They'll want to verify the bond is real. When they do, they're going to realize what you are, and some of them won't be happy about it. Why not? Because a king with a perfect anchor is nearly impossible to overthrow. Day 9, Wednesday night, 2 days before the solstice gala. Rowan couldn't sleep. She wandered the penthouse at 3 a.m., drawn by the sound of piano music. The music room was on the north side. A Steinway grand piano sat before a window overlooking the lake. Dominic sat at the keys playing something slow and haunting. Chopin maybe, or older. He didn't stop when she entered, just kept playing. Rowan sat in a chair nearby, listened. When the song ended, silence filled the room. I didn't know you played, she said. I've had 300 years to learn many things. Dominic's fingers rested on the keys. Music was one of the few pleasures I allowed myself. It's beautiful. It's borrowed. All art is borrowed from human souls. We vampires, we can mimic, master technique, but we can't create the way humans can. We've lost that spark. He looked at her. That's what anchors give us, the spark. Rowan stood, walked to the piano. Play something happy. I don't remember happy. Then I'll teach you. She sat beside him on the bench. Their shoulders nearly touched. She placed her hands on the keys and played chopsticks, the simple, childish tune her father had taught her when she was 6. Dominic stared at her hands. That's happy, he asked. It's silly. Silly can be happy. She bumped his shoulder with hers. Your turn. He placed his hands on the keys, played chopsticks with perfect precision, but somehow coming from him, it sounded lonely. You're playing the notes, Rowan said. Not the feeling. Show me the feeling. She took his right hand, positioned his fingers differently. Play it sloppy, off rhythm, like you're 6 years old and you don't care if it's perfect. He tried, failed. His centuries of precision fought against the instruction. Rowan laughed. You're terrible at being imperfect. I haven't been imperfect in a very long time. Then maybe it's time to learn. Dominic looked at her. Really looked. His gray eyes traced her face in the dim light. You're not afraid of me anymore. Should I be? Most humans never stop being afraid, even my own daughter. He stopped, swallowed. Until you. Iris isn't afraid of you. She's afraid of herself. Of what she is, half vampire, half human, belonging to neither world. You understood that in 5 minutes. I've had 50 years. Sometimes outsiders see things insiders can't. Rowan stood. The gala is in 2 days. Gabriel says they'll test me. What does that mean? Blood trial. You'll sit before a glass of fresh blood for 10 minutes without drinking. It tests anchor bond strength, whether my connection to you is strong enough to suppress human bloodlust. I've never wanted to drink blood. You will, when it's fresh, when it's in front of you. The pull is instinctive. Vampires emit pheromones that make humans crave it. Dominic's voice went hard. If you drink even a drop, you'll begin the turning, and I won't be able to stop it. Then I won't drink. Rowan, I won't. She met his eyes. I trust you. You need to trust me too. He stood, closed the distance between them, stopped close enough that she could feel the cold radiating from his skin. I'm beginning to, he whispered. Day 10, Thursday evening, 7 p.m. The stylist had been working on Rowan for 3 hours. Hair washed, dried, curled, pinned into an intricate updo that exposed her neck. Makeup applied with precision, smoky eyes, sharp cheekbones, red lips like wine. The dress was blood-red velvet that hugged her frame before flaring at the floor, a slit up the right thigh. For running, she'd insisted. They'd argued. She'd won. She looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. This woman was elegant, dangerous, beautiful. This woman looked like she belonged in a vampire's world. You look adequate, Rowan turned. Dominic stood in the doorway. He wore a tuxedo that fit him like it was sewn onto his body. Black on black on black. He looked devastatingly handsome and utterly predatory. Adequate, she raised an eyebrow. I feel like a sacrificial lamb wrapped in a very expensive bow. Dominic walked into the room. The stylist fled silently. The door clicked shut. He stopped in front of her. His eyes scanned her face. Not with hunger, with concern. You are not a sacrifice, Rowan. You're a declaration. His voice was low, serious. Tonight I present you to the High Council. By claiming an anchor, I'm telling them I'm stable, powerful enough to hold on to my humanity. It makes me harder to depose. And if they don't like it, they'll try to kill you. Rowan's breath caught. Dominic reached into his pocket, pulled out a delicate silver necklace with a pendant made of black obsidian. May I? She nodded. He moved behind her. His cold fingers brushed her warm skin as he fastened the clasp. Electricity shot down her spine. She saw his hands tremble slightly in the mirror. This contains a tracking beacon and a localized shield generator, he whispered into her ear. It will stop a bullet. It won't stop a vampire's claws, but it will buy you 3 seconds. In my world, 3 seconds is a lifetime. Don't take it off. Romantic, Rowan quipped, trying to hide her fear. Survival is the only romance we can afford. He stepped back, offered his arm, ready to enter the shark tank. Do I have a choice? No. She took his arm, felt the iron-hard muscle beneath the expensive fabric. Together they walked toward the elevator, toward the gala, toward a world that would judge whether she deserved to live. The Cross Hotel was 5 blocks from Cross Tower, historic Gothic structure, gargoyles leering from the roof. Inside was all marble and gold and crystal chandeliers. The ballroom was bathed in golden light. A string quartet played a hauntingly slow waltz. 200 people in evening wear, drinking champagne, speaking in low voices. Not all of them were human. Rowan could tell the difference now. The vampires moved differently, held themselves with that same eerie stillness Dominic had. Their skin caught light wrong. Their eyes reflected like cats. The herald at the top of the grand staircase struck his staff 3 times. Dominic Thorne, King of Chicago, and his companion Rowan Sterling. Every head turned, hundreds of eyes fixed on her, some curious, some mocking, most hungry. Rowan gripped Dominic's arm. Her knuckles went white. Breathe, he murmured. Lift your chin. You're under my protection. If you look weak, they'll attack. If you look arrogant, they'll hesitate. She straightened her spine, raised her chin, became the woman in the mirror. They descended the grand staircase. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. A man stepped forward. He was handsome in a cruel, sharp way. Blonde hair slicked back, Smile that didn't reach his dead gray eyes. White tuxedo, the only person in the room not wearing black. Standing out was a power move. Dominic, the man's voice was smooth as oil. We didn't think you'd actually show. And with a pet, how quaint. Lucian, Dominic's grip on Rowan tightened imperceptibly. This is Rowan Sterling, my anchor, and you will address her with the same respect you'd show a queen. Lucian Draven turned his gaze to Rowan. It felt like being submerged in ice water, like drowning in winter. He stepped closer, invaded her personal space, breathed in her scent. An anchor, how nostalgic. The last time a king took an anchor, she didn't last the week. His smile widened. Humans are so fragile. They break so easily. Terror rose in Rowan's throat, screaming at her to run, to bow, to apologize for existing. But she remembered the diner, the cracked table, the moment she chose defiance over fear. And she smiled, sharp, dangerous. The smile of someone who'd survived poverty and debt and stepmothers and loan sharks. I don't break, Mr. Draven. Her voice was clear, loud enough for the surrounding circle to hear. I endure, and unlike you, I don't need to drink blood to feel powerful. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. You didn't speak to Lucian Draven like that. His smile faltered. Just for a fraction of a second, his eyes narrowed. Spirited. I see why Dominic keeps you. He leaned closer, whispered so only she could hear. Enjoy the party, Rowan. The food is to die for. He walked away. The tension broke, replaced by a frantic buzz of whispers. You have a death wish, Dominic muttered, but there was pride gleaming in his eyes. Come, let's dance before someone poisons your champagne. The next 3 hours were a blur. Rowan met the other Vampire Kings. Lady Seraphine from Chicago North, beautiful and cold as winter. Dmitry Volkov from Milwaukee, Russian accent, scarred face, kind eyes. Alara Moon from Detroit, not her stepmother. Thank God, different Alara entirely. She navigated conversations better than expected. Realized the vampire court was just like the diner. Everyone wanted something, everyone lied, everyone responded to confidence. But as midnight approached, Dominic grew tense. He kept glancing at his phone, speaking in hushed tones with Gabriel. At 11:45, he pulled Rowan aside, led her to a balcony overlooking the city. Something's wrong, he said. 3 of my warehouses went dark. No communication. Lucian? Has to be, but he's been here all night. He has an insider. Dominic paced. Someone feeding him my security codes. Who? I don't know. He stopped, looked at her. Moonlight hid his pale face, making him look ancient, sorrowful. Rowan, tonight you were magnificent. I've spent centuries alone. Told myself I didn't need anyone. But watching you stand up to Lucian. He stepped closer. The gap between them vanished. He cupped her face. His thumb traced her lower lip, cold skin against warm. I think I'm in trouble, he whispered. Why? Her heart hammered against her ribs. Because I'm starting to care about you more than the crown. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hungry, consuming. His lips were cold, but the fire behind them was searing. Rowan melted into him, wrapped her arms around his neck. For a moment, the politics and vampires in danger disappeared. There was just the two of them, suspended above the city. The moment shattered. The balcony doors burst open. Sienna stood there, silver blade drawn, face pale. Sir, she said urgently, we have a massive problem. Data breach coming from inside the network. Dominic pulled away from Rowan. His eyes instantly hardened. Trace it. We did. Sienna looked at Dominic, then at Rowan. Her expression was pained. The unauthorized transfer of security protocols. It came from Rowan's phone. Silence. Heavy, crushing, absolute. Dominic froze. He looked at Sienna, then slowly turned his head to Rowan. The warmth in his eyes evaporated, replaced by a glacial void. Give me your phone. His voice was unrecognizable. The voice of the king again. Dominic, I haven't done anything. Rowan's hands shook as she reached into her clutch. I haven't even touched my phone all night. She handed it to him. Dominic unlocked it with a swipe, tapped the screen. His jaw clenched tighter with every second. He turned the screen toward her. There, in her sent messages. A file transfer, timestamped 20 minutes ago, right while they were dancing. The recipient was an encrypted number known to belong to Lucian Draven's lieutenant. The security codes for the penthouse. Dominic's voice trembled with suppressed rage. The patrol routes, the location of my sleeping chambers. You sent him everything. No. Rowan stepped back. I didn't. Someone must have hacked it. Dominic, look at me. Why would I do that? You saved Cassian. You saved my mother. Or maybe that was all part of the negotiation. He stepped forward, backing her against the stone railing. Maybe Lucian offered you more. I offer you 2 million. He offers you 5 or 10. Humans are always for sale, aren't they? It's not about money, Rowan screamed, tears streaming down her face. I care about you. Lies, Dominic roared. The sound cracked the glass of the balcony doors. You played the part perfectly. The brave waitress, the feisty anchor. You made me trust you. You made me feel. He grabbed her arm, his grip bruised. Sienna, take her to the holding cells in the basement. I'll deal with the traitor, or I secure the tower. Dominic, please, Rowan begged as Sienna moved forward, grabbing her other arm. Think if I was a spy, why would I use my own phone? It's a setup. You're the genius strategist. Use your brain. Get her out of my sight, Dominic snarled, turned his back on her. Before I tear her throat out right here. Sienna dragged Rowan away. As she was hauled through the ballroom, now emptying, as guests sensed the shift in air, Rowan saw him. Lucian Draven stood near the exit. He raised a glass of champagne to her and winked. The bastard had planned this, all of it. Rowan was thrown into the back of a security vehicle, not the limousine, a black SUV with reinforced doors and no windows. Sienna sat across from her, gun in hand. Sienna, you have to believe me, Rowan pleaded. I didn't do it. Sienna's face was a mask, professional, cold. The evidence is absolute, Rowan. The king's systems are impenetrable. Only someone with physical access to his inner circle could bypass the firewalls. Or it's someone else in the inner circle. Rowan leaned forward. Who else has access? You, Gabriel. Sienna stiffened. Gabriel is like a father to Dominic. He served the Thorne family for 300 years. And people change, Rowan yelled. Please, if you lock me up and Lucian attacks tonight, Dominic is going to die. He's distracted. He's hurt. He's not thinking clearly. Sienna stared at her, looked at the tracking necklace Rowan still wore. The vehicle swerved violently. An explosion rocked the street ahead. The driver slammed the brakes as a fireball erupted from the asphalt. Ambush! The driver screamed. Gunfire erupted from the rooftops. Heavy caliber rounds shredded the armored vehicle. The driver slumped over. Dead. Sienna kicked the door open. Get out, move! They scrambled onto the chaotic street, only a few blocks from Cross Tower. Mercenaries in tactical gear rappelled down from surrounding buildings. Not ferals, professionals. Lucian's elite guard. They're hitting the tower, Sienna realized, firing back at the attackers. The breach shut down perimeter defenses. They're going straight for the king. We have to go back, Rowan shouted over the gunfire. You are a prisoner, Sienna yelled, reloading. I am the only one who can save him. Rowan grabbed Sienna's arm. You said the necklace has a shield, a tracker. Dominic thinks I'm the traitor, so he won't be looking for the real one. Whoever framed me is inside the penthouse right now with him. Sienna looked at the burning tower in the distance, looked at the mercenaries closing in, made a decision. If you betray us, she said, handing Rowan a spare handgun, I will kill you slowly. Deal. Rowan checked the chamber like she'd seen in movies. Now let's go save the idiot king. They ran toward Cross Tower, toward the fire, toward the man who thought she'd betrayed him. And Rowan prayed they'd make it in time, because she was about to prove everyone wrong. She wasn't garbage. She wasn't a traitor. She was exactly what Dominic needed, even if he couldn't see it yet. The maintenance tunnel beneath Cross Tower smelled of concrete and rust. Rowan ran. Sienna ahead of her, moving like smoke through the darkness. The gun felt heavy and wrong in Rowan's hand. She'd never held a real weapon before. The metal was cold, unforgiving, like everything in this world she'd fallen into. Behind them, the sounds of battle, gunfire, screams, the city tearing itself apart. Ahead, the man who thought she'd betrayed him, dying. Freight elevator, Sienna hissed. She swiped a keycard. The doors groaned open. When we reach 95, it will be a kill zone. Stay behind me. If I tell you to run, you run. Where's Dominic? If the main systems are down, he'll be in the panic room, behind the library, manually overriding the servers. The elevator lurched upward. Rowan's stomach dropped. She looked down at herself. The red velvet dress was torn, covered in ash and concrete dust. Her carefully arranged hair had come loose. Mascara probably streaked down her face. She looked like she'd been through war. She felt like it too. Sienna, Rowan said. Her voice shook. What if we're too late? The platinum-haired vampire didn't look at her, just checked her weapons with mechanical precision. Then I will kill everyone responsible, and you will run. The elevator dinged, 95th floor. The doors slid open, Rowan's breath caught. The penthouse was destroyed, furniture overturned. The beautiful glass coffee table shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces. Art slashed from the walls. Bodies Dominic's guards scattered across the marble floor. Blood, so much blood, dark and viscous, pooling in the grout between tiles. But no gunfire. The silence was worse than the chaos. "They're in the library," Sienna whispered. She moved forward. Silent. Rowan followed, trying not to step on glass, trying not to look at the dead men, some of them she'd met. Marcus, who worked security, James, who brought her breakfast. All dead. The library doors were blown off their hinges. Inside, Rowan's heart stopped. Dominic was on his knees. He gripped the edge of his mahogany desk, trying to stand, failing, coughing up dark blood that looked black in the dim light. His skin had turned gray. Shin. Veins bulged in his neck, pulsing with something wrong, poison spreading through his system. Standing over him, calmly pouring himself a drink from Dominic's crystal decanter, was Gabriel Crane, the kind grandfather, the loyal advisor, the man who'd served 300 years. The traitor. Rowan and Sienna stayed hidden behind a bookshelf, watching, waiting. "Why?" Dominic's voice was a rasp, wet, broken. "Gabriel, why 300 years?" Gabriel sighed, took a sip of whiskey, savored it like he had all the time in the world. 300 years, Dominic. 300 years of cleaning up your messes, managing the money while you brooded, watching you risk our entire empire because you have a soft spot for humanity. He walked around the desk, stood over the man he'd served for centuries. "Lucian Draven is a brute, yes, but he understands business. He offered me a partnership, 50% of Chicago. All I had to do was lower the shields and give you a concentrated dose of wolfsbane in your evening wine." Dominic tried to lunge, collapsed back down. The poison had him paralyzed. "You framed her." The words came out broken, desperate. "Of course," Gabriel smiled, grandfatherly and cruel. "It was so easy. You were so ready to believe a human would betray you. It's your fatal flaw, Dominic. You want to love them, but you don't trust them. That hesitation gave me the window I needed." He pulled a gold-plated revolver from inside his cardigan, aimed it at Dominic's head. "Goodbye, old friend. It's just business." Rowan didn't think. She stepped from behind the bookshelf, raised the gun Sienna had given her, aimed at the center of Gabriel's back. Her hands shook. She'd never shot anyone, never wanted to kill, but she thought of Dominic teaching Iris to play chess, of him laughing at chopsticks, of his cold fingers fastening the necklace around her throat, of the way he'd kissed her on the balcony like she was precious. She pulled the trigger. Bang! The recoil nearly knocked her backward. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Gabriel staggered, clutched his shoulder. She'd missed his heart. Her aim was terrible, but the bullet had shattered his clavicle. He spun, saw her, his face transformed. The kindly mask fell away. His eyes went black, fully black. His mouth opened too wide, revealing rows of teeth that shouldn't exist in a human jaw. "Get away from him!" Rowan screamed. Gabriel roared. The sound was demonic, inhuman. He'd been hiding his true nature all along. Not human, not vampire, something else, something older. He lunged across the room. Sienna intercepted. Blade met claws. They crashed through the library window in a flurry of violence, tumbled out onto the terrace. The sounds of their battle metal on bone screams, blood echoed into the night. Rowan dropped the gun, sprinted to Dominic. She slid to her knees. Glass cut through her dress, through her skin. She didn't care. She grabbed his face with both hands. "Dominic, look at me." His eyes rolled, unfocused. The gray had turned almost white, clouded. The wolfsbane was shutting down his heart, his ancient, powerful heart that had beaten for 327 years. It was stopping. "Rowan." His voice was barely a whisper. "You came back. I told you." She gripped him tighter, tears streaming down her face, cutting tracks through the ash and makeup. "I don't break, and I don't quit." "Leave me," he coughed. More black blood. "Lucian is coming." "Shut up!" She hooked her arms under his and pulled. Dead weight. He was so heavy. Vampire muscle and bone dense as stone. But she dragged him, inch by inch, across the destroyed library toward the hidden panel behind the bookcase. The panic room. Her muscles screamed. Her back felt like it would snap, but she pulled. "Dominic, you have to help me. Move, move." He tried, got his feet under him partially. Together, her pulling him barely shuffling, they made it to the panel. Behind them, the elevator chimed. Heavy footsteps entered the penthouse. "Come out, Dominic," Lucian Draven's voice boomed through the apartment, smooth and deadly. "I want to see the light leave your eyes." Rowan slammed her hand on the panic room button. The reinforced steel door hissed shut, locked with a definitive thud, seconds before a hail of bullets sparked against the metal. They were sealed in. The panic room was small, lined with monitors showing the carnage outside, weapons mounted on the walls, a medical cabinet. Rowan let Dominic slide to the floor. He was convulsing, his back arched, eyes rolled back until only white showed. He was dying. "No, no, 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 no." Rowan scrambled to the medical cabinet, threw it open. Bottles, vials, things labeled in Latin. She didn't know what any of it meant. "The antidote." Dominic gasped. His hand shook as he pointed. Blue vial. There. A cobalt blue bottle. Rowan grabbed it. Grabbed a syringe still in sterile packaging. Her hands trembled so badly she almost dropped it. "Breathe. Focus. This is just like waitressing, one task at a time." She ripped open the packaging, drew the blue liquid into the syringe. The needle gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. "Where do I march upon?" Heart. Straight into the heart. Oh, God. Rowan positioned the needle over his chest, over where his heart should be. She could see it beating. Irregular. Stuttering. About to stop. She jammed the needle in, pushed the plunger. Dominic's back arched. His mouth opened in a silent scream. His eyes flew open, glowing an eerie, terrifying blue, like lightning trapped in storm clouds. Then he collapsed, gasping, panting. The gray color began to recede from his skin like tide pulling back from shore. "Did it work?" Rowan hovered over him, hands still shaking. "Dominic, did it work?" He looked up at her. His expression was awe and shame twisted together. He reached out, took her hand. This time his grip was gentle, reverent. "I almost killed you." His voice broke. "I cast you out, and you ran into the fire for me." "You're an idiot," Rowan laughed. The sound came out half-sob. "But you're my idiot. For the next year. Remember the contract." Dominic let out a weak chuckle. He sat up, leaned against the wall, looked at the monitors. The screen showed the penthouse filled with Lucian's soldiers, 20 at least, armed with guns and blades and teeth. Sienna was nowhere to be seen, either dead or still fighting Gabriel somewhere in the Chicago night. They were trapped, an army outside, a king recovering from poison, a waitress in a torn dress. Dominic looked at the weapons rack. He stood, steadied himself on Rowan's shoulder. The antidote was working, his strength returning, fueled by something cold and dark and furious. Gabriel was right about one thing. His voice dropped to that lethal register from the diner. The voice of a predator remembering what it was. "I've been too soft. I tried to play politics." He picked up a long, serrated sword from the rack. Silver blade, ancient, beautiful and terrible. He turned to Rowan. "Are you afraid?" "Terrified." "Good. Hold on to that. It keeps you sharp." He walked to the console controlling the panic room door, looked at her over his shoulder. "They think they have us trapped. They think the king is weak." His hand hovered over the door release. "I'm going to open this door, Rowan, and I'm going to remind them why the monsters in the dark fear me." "What do I do?" Dominic smiled, all teeth and rage and ancient power. "Stay behind me, and if anyone gets past me..." He looked at the shotgun she'd picked up from the wall. "Make them regret it." He hit the button. The steel door hissed open. For a heartbeat, there was silence. The mercenaries gathered in the ruins of the penthouse raised their weapons, expecting a desperate couple to surrender. What they got was a hurricane. Dominic Thorne didn't walk out. He erupted. He moved faster than human eyes could track. A blur of shadow and violence and 3 centuries of rage unleashed. The first mercenary didn't even have time to scream before Dominic's blade severed his rifle and the hands holding it. Rowan stepped out behind him. The shotgun tucked tight against her shoulder. The room was chaos. Gunfire, screams, bodies flying. She didn't have Dominic's speed, but she had something the mercenaries didn't expect. She knew the terrain. She dove behind the overturned granite kitchen island, racked the shotgun slide. The sound cut through the noise. Mechanical. Final. "Flank him!" Lucian's voice roared from somewhere above. He was on the second level, safe, watching his men die. "Suppressing fire on the girl. She's his weakness." Bullets chewed up the granite near Rowan's head. She covered her ears, counted the rhythm, waiting for the reloads. 1, 2, 3. She popped up. Boom! A mercenary trying to sneak up on Dominic's blindside flew backward, his chest armor shattered by the slug. Dominic paused, glanced back at her. His eyes were glowing fiercely now. Fully vampire, fully predator. He nodded. Silent acknowledgement of partnership. He wasn't protecting her anymore. They were fighting together. Dominic turned his attention back to the room. He was a conductor of death. He caught a grenade midair, hurled it back at the thrower. The explosion took out 3 mercenaries. He dodged bullets by turning to mist, rematerializing behind his attackers to deliver killing blows. Within 3 minutes, the room fell silent. 12 bodies, still, bleeding. Dominic stood in the center of the carnage, his chest heaving, his shirt torn and stained. He looked up at the second level, at the grand staircase where Lucian Draven stood, slow clapping. Impressive, Lucian sneered. The old wolf still has teeth. But you look tired, Dominic. That antidote, it's hard on the system, isn't it? Lucian removed his white jacket, tossed it over the railing, rolled up his sleeves, revealing arms covered in ancient runic tattoos, symbols of power and binding. Now it's just you and me, king against challenger. Come down here, Lucian, Dominic growled, gripping his sword. Let's see if you bleed as well as you talk. Lucian leaped from the balcony, landed effortlessly on the main floor. The impact cracked the marble tiles, spider webs of fractures spreading from where his feet hit. He didn't draw a weapon. His hands lengthened, fingernails growing into 6-inch obsidian claws, sharp enough to cut steel. They collided with a shockwave. The remaining windows shattered. The force of their impact sent furniture skidding across the floor. It was a battle of titans. They moved too fast for Rowan to aim. Blurs of motion, smashing through walls, destroying what little remained of the penthouse. Dominic was skilled, a master swordsman, 300 years of practice. But Lucian was right. Dominic was weakened. The poison had taken its toll. His movements were a fraction slower, his strikes less precise. Lucian landed a heavy blow, backhanded Dominic across the room. Dominic crashed into the fireplace. The marble crumbled around him. He struggled to rise, coughing blood again. His sword was just out of reach. It's over. Lucian stalked toward him, claws extended. You let your emotions make you weak. You let a human distract you. He raised his claws for the killing strike. Dominic was dazed, trying to move, failing. Rowan saw it happening in slow motion. She had 1 shell left in the shotgun. She was 30 feet away. She wouldn't make it in time. She dropped the gun, grabbed a jagged shard of glass from the floor, and she ran. Not at Lucian, at Dominic. Dominic, she screamed. Lucian paused, glanced at her, amused. Going to die with him. How romantic. Rowan ignored him, slid across the blood-slicked floor, ignored Lucian completely, grabbed Dominic's collar, hauled his face up to hers. His eyes were unfocused, glazed, defeated. She slapped him, hard. The crack echoed through the destroyed penthouse. Lucian froze, confused. Rowan shook Dominic, her face inches from his. You promised me a year, she yelled, not at Lucian, at the man she'd come to save. You promised to save my family. If you die here, you're breaking a contract. And I hate people who break contracts. She shook him again, harder. Get up. You are the king of Chicago. Act like it. Something sparked in Dominic's eyes. The fog cleared. The defeat vanished. And something else filled the space. Rage. Pure, human, burning rage that Rowan was pouring into him through touch, through bond, through the anchor connection that tied them together. She wasn't just grounding him. She was fueling him. This was the anchor bond in full force, not comfort, not stability. Raw emotion transferred from human to vampire. Her fury, her defiance, her absolute refusal to let him quit. It ignited his blood like gasoline on fire. Dominic grabbed her hand, squeezed, absorbed her fury, her will, her strength. He looked past her, at Lucian. He didn't look tired anymore. He looked apocalyptic. She told you, Dominic whispered. His voice vibrated the floorboards, made dust fall from the ceiling. Act like a king. Lucian lunged. Dominic didn't dodge. He moved through the attack, caught Lucian's wrist mid-strike, twisted with a sickening crunch of bone. With his other hand, he summoned the sword from across the room. Used telekinesis he hadn't had the strength for moments ago. The blade flew into his grip. In one fluid motion, Dominic drove the sword upward, through Lucian's chest, pinned him to the wall like an insect to a board. Lucian gasped. Black blood bubbled from his lips. He clawed at the blade, his eyes wide with shock. How? He choked. You were drained. Dominic leaned in close, face inches from his rivals. I have something you don't, Lucian. I have someone worth fighting for. He twisted the blade. Lucian Draven went limp. His body began to dissolve, turning to ash, to dust, to nothing, leaving only his white clothes pinned to the wall. The silence that followed was deafening. Dominic stood there for a long moment, staring at the pile of ash. Then he let go of the sword, turned around. Rowan sat on the floor, leaning against the ruined kitchen island, her red dress in tatters, hair a mess, covered in dust and blood that wasn't hers. She looked exhausted. Dominic walked toward her, not with arrogance, slowly, hesitantly, like he was approaching something sacred that might break. He knelt in front of her, glass shards digging into his knees. He didn't care. He looked at her face, searching for fear, for hate. He found neither. Rowan, his voice was soft, broken. You look terrible. She managed a smile, though her lip quivered. You don't look great yourself. He struggled with the words. Kings didn't apologize. Kings didn't admit fault, but looking at her, he realized he wasn't just a king anymore. I almost killed you. I accused you. I let Gabriel manipulate me against you. There is no penance enough for that. Rowan reached out, touched his cheek. His skin was cold, but it warmed under her touch. You were scared, she said. You've been alone for 300 years. Trust is a muscle, Dominic. You haven't used it in a while. It's going to cramp. I broke the deal. He lowered his head. I shouted at you. Rowan laughed, dry, tired. Yeah, you did. Technically, I should walk away right now. Dominic flinched, started to stand, accepting his punishment of solitude. Rowan grabbed his tie, yanked him back down. Sit, she commanded. He froze. I said the deal ends if you shout at me again, she whispered, her face inches from his. But I'm willing to negotiate a new contract. Dominic's eyes widened. Name your terms. First, she counted on her fingers. No more secrets. If you think I'm a spy, you ask me. You don't lock me in a dungeon. Agreed. The word came instantly. Second, Sienna teaches me how to use those knives. I'm tired of being the damsel. Agreed. And third, she paused, looked at his lips, then his eyes. You owe me a new dress and a really, really good dinner. Somewhere nobody tries to kill us, Dominic smiled. The first true unburdened smile she'd seen on his face. It transformed him from monster to man. I know a place, but the service is terrible. Rosie's Diner. Rowan raised an eyebrow. The fries are excellent. He murmured. He leaned in. And this time there were no interruptions. He kissed her, not with hunger or desperation, with deep, reverent gratitude. A promise sealed in blood and ash. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance. Police, fire trucks, the authorities coming. The masquerade was over. The cleanup would begin. Sienna limped into the room from the balcony, holding her side, battered but alive. She looked at the dead mercenaries, the pile of ash that used to be Lucian. Finally at Dominic and Rowan sitting amid the wreckage. Sir, she holstered her weapon. The helicopter is inbound. We need to leave before authorities arrive. And Gabriel. Dead? No, contained. My blade was silver. He's weak, bound, waiting for your judgment. Dominic stood, pulled Rowan with him, took off his tuxedo jacket, torn and bloody, and draped it over her shoulders. He looked at the burning skyline of his city, a city he'd almost lost, but now ruled more securely than ever. Let them come, he said, holding Rowan's hand. Let them see. The king is back. And the queen, Rowan whispered. Dominic looked down at her, eyes shining with something that looked like worship. Long live the queen. 3 days later, the High Council reconvened. Not at the destroyed Cross Hotel, at the Basilica, an ancient church converted to vampire court. All 7 regional vampire kings, their advisors, their guards. Gabriel Crane was brought in chains, silver chains that burned his skin. He looked diminished, old, human. Whatever he'd been demon witch, something else, the silver suppressed it. Gabriel Crane, Lady Seraphine spoke. She presided as the eldest. You stand accused of treason, conspiracy, attempted regicide. How do you plead? Gabriel lifted his head, looked at Dominic with hate. I regret nothing. You were weak. You are weak, choosing a human over power. Enough, Dmitry Volkov slammed his hand on the table. We've heard the evidence, seen the surveillance. You confessed on camera. The council has decided, Seraphine continued, death would be mercy. You will receive none. You are hereby exiled, your immortality stripped. You will age as humans age. Live out your remaining years alone, cut off from all vampire contact, forbidden to speak our names, to enter our territories, to access our resources. Gabriel's face went white. You can't, it is done. Guards dragged him away, screaming. It was a fate worse than death for someone who'd lived 300 years in power. To become human again, mortal, alone. In the matter of Alara Ashford, Seraphine turned to Dominic. Human authorities have been notified. Evidence of human trafficking provided to the FBI. She'll spend 25 years in federal prison. Dominic's voice was cold, final. Where she belongs. Good. Now, Seraphine looked at Rowan, who stood beside Dominic in a simple black dress. No makeup, no pretense, just herself. The matter of the anchor. The council chamber went silent. Rowan Sterling, you passed the blood trial. You saved the king's life. You proved loyalty beyond question. The council recognizes the anchor bond as authentic and binding. Seraphine stood. The other kings stood with her. By the power vested in this council, we declare Rowan Sterling as Queen Consort of Chicago, with all rights, protections, and privileges thereof. The chamber erupted in applause. Not everyone was happy. Some faces showed resentment, anger. But the majority, they saw what Rowan was, what she'd done. She'd saved their king, prevented a war, exposed a traitor. She'd earned this. Dominic took her hand, raised it. My queen, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My anchor, my salvation. Rowan looked at him, at the council, at the world she'd fallen into, and she smiled. Not the scared smile of a waitress trying to survive, the confident smile of a woman who knew exactly what she was worth. 3 months later, Rosie's Diner, 2 a.m. Tuesday. The booth where it all started was still cracked from where Dominic had slammed his hand down. The owner had kept it, said it was good luck. Rowan sat across from Dominic, both of them dressed casually. Her in jeans and a hoodie, him in a simple black sweater. No tuxedos, no ball gowns, just two people having late-night fries. Old Man Miller brought their order. Fries for the queen, coffee, black for the king. Anything else, your majesties? He said it without irony, without fear, just fact. We're good, Miller, thanks. Rowan smiled. When he walked away, Dominic reached across the table, took her hand. His skin wasn't cold anymore. The anchor bond had warmed him, made him more human, more alive. Do you regret it, he asked. Saving you every day. She grinned. Staying never. I love you, Rowan Sterling. The words were simple, quiet, but they carried the weight of 300 years of loneliness ending. I know. She squeezed his hand. I love you too, you idiot. Outside, Chicago slept, unaware that their city was ruled by a vampire king and the waitress who told him to sit down and shut up. Unaware that the greatest love story of the century had started over a plate of fries and 6 words of defiance. Rowan looked out the window, at her reflection, at the woman she'd become. They'd called her worthless. Garbage. Nothing. But she'd proven them all wrong. She was the anchor who'd saved a king. She was the queen who'd conquered an empire with nothing but courage and a refusal to break. And somewhere in federal prison, Alara Ashford sat in a cell. No designer clothes. No diamond earrings. No power. Just consequences. Somewhere in rural Wyoming, Gabriel Crane aged another day. His body failing. His power gone. Living the slow death of human mortality in complete isolation. Just karma. And here in a rundown diner at 2 in the morning, a woman who'd been invisible her whole life held hands with the man who'd finally seen her. You know what the best part is, Rowan said. What? The story's just beginning. Dominic smiled, raised her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. Long live the queen. And outside the city that never sleeps continued its endless dance. Unaware that in the shadows, in the spaces between heartbeats, a new era had begun. An era where love conquered power, where the underestimated rose, where the broken became a whole, where a waitress became a queen, and proved that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is look fear in the eye and say, shout at me again and this ends.